Good morning, my Live, Build, Change friends. This is Kerry Green. I'm back for the Morning Mindset edition of the Live, Build, Change podcast today. And I want to walk us into perhaps the beginning of the most difficult time in the life of Moses. We've been looking at everything that's happened in his life up till this point. And this is the point at which Moses begins taking steps of obedience to go back to Egypt, the very place he ran from, the very place where his life was in danger, in order to obey God's command and lead the people of Israel out of their slavery in Egypt. Now, the reason I say it's perhaps one of the most difficult times of Moses' life is because he's an 80-year-old man to begin with. I mean, he's lived a lot of years. And of course, in those days, they lived a little bit longer than we do, 20, 30, 40 years longer. Moses, I think, lived until he was 120. But at 80 years old, you're still not a spring chicken, right? You still have some aches and pains, and you've been through quite a lot. And he's being asked to go back into a very adversarial, difficult circumstance and do what seems to be the impossible. And we've talked some in the previous editions of the Morning Mindset about what it's like to step into a situation that you believe God is calling you into that is way, way over your head. That's exactly where Moses is. And God speaks to him, and he kind of prepares him for what he's going to face. He says in verse 19 of chapter number 4 of the book of Exodus, God says, "Go back to Egypt, for all the men who were seeking your life are dead." So there's some assurance. That's great. So Moses took his wife and his sons and had them ride on a donkey and went back to the land of Egypt. And Moses took the staff of God in his hand. And the Lord said to Moses, "When you go back to Egypt, see that you do before Pharaoh all the miracles that I've put in your power. But I, God speaking, I will harden his heart so that he will not let the people go." Now stop right there for a second. This is bringing us into a section of Scripture that is perhaps one of the most difficult for us to get our brains around. As human beings, we have this understanding of the way the world works and the way our relationship with God works that often does not include concepts like what we're about to dive into. You see, we talk a lot about ourselves as human beings having free will. And free will is absolutely a reality. We do have the ability to choose. But I think it's important that we realize when we read statements like what God just said to Moses in this passage. He's saying, "I want you to go and do these miracles before Pharaoh, and you're going to ask him to let my people go. But I, God, the God of the universe, will harden his heart so that he will not let the people go." When we read statements like that, we have to bring ourselves to a place that we don't often get to on our own. And it's a place of accepting that God himself is over and above every human decision. Yes, we have a free will, but it is only free within the boundaries which God has created for it. And that is the boundaries of being a created being, a created thing. So God, as the creator, has superiority, and let me say that 5 times fast, has superiority over us. He has authority over us, and we call it sovereignty. God can and oftentimes does overarch the decisions of mankind for his own good purposes. We're going to dig into this a little more tomorrow because we're almost out of time, but I don't want you to be disturbed by this. I want you to know this is very, very good news. And we're going to talk about why it is on tomorrow's Morning Mindset edition of the Live, Build, Change podcast.